Serious question for y'all. What if they made, for Halloween, they made Winston into King Kong, and they made his little gun thing into the Empire State Building? Like a little model of it.
That's pretty good.
What if you had to play King of the Hill, but you're all working against Winston and he's super powerful. So you're trying to take him down from the tower.
One player gets to be Winston.
Hey, it'd be different.
Yeah.
I did play a modded game that was 6v1 with the person who is the one having 6 times as much everything. You know.
Damn.
It was pretty fun.
And they picked Widowmaker on attack. God damn them. But yeah. So anyway,
what were you saying? What were you saying about Junkenstein's Revenge?
Oh, I was just saying that I'm kind of disappointed that they didn't go with classic monster stuff or more classic Halloween-looking stuff. Because, I mean, making Anna a pirate is like, okay, but Torbjorn is already a pirate, not a Halloween costume. If you're already doing it, it's not Halloween. That type of thing. Like, maybe make a character a monkey, a mummy. Make a character the creature from the Black Lagoon. Make somebody...
Counter argument. My boner at Anna.
Oh, okay. I see.
Yeah.
So welcome everybody to the Hyper-Realists.
Do we just want to do an episode where we just talk about concepts for Overwatch characters? A goof-off episode?
Yes.
Okay. Is Overwatch killing Creepypasta?
Is Blizzard killing Overwatch?
No.
Yes. They're doing the same Halloween event from last year. I mean, come on. They didn't fucking do anything different. Jesus Christ.
Good. I want them to work on new stuff.
All right. Anyway. So yeah, Overwatch. You guys want to discuss Overwatch? Is that correct?
No.
I'm fine with that. We did that for Undercooked Analysis, and it was fun.
How about this? Yeah, I mean, you already did it for Undercooked Analysis, so come on.
Yeah.
How about this? I mean, maybe I could propose a new topic. Is there anywhere to go at all in video game creepypasta? Is there any future in it in any regard? Because what more is there to do?
Yes.
Oh,
yes,
okay.
Absolutely.
The reason is because creepypasta, as we know it, as our perspective, has scarcely been done in the world of video games. And so there's only a handful of examples that I can think of. One of which is, it's up for debate because there are different qualities in this, but Resident Evil 7 has a first-person mode that's very immersive and everything, and that feels like it's taking on the qualities of creepypasta.
So you think that there could be an effective creepypasta about Resident Evil 7?
No, I think Resident Evil 7 is creepypasta-like.
So, I see what you're saying. So you think that there's a future for creepypasta in video games, but not necessarily, or we haven't made this argument yet about video game creepypastas being written.
Yes.
I see what you're saying.
I think that in terms of a video game, Resident Evil 7 is very much so a creepypasta in many regards. Same thing with Outlast. You know Outlast?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
That game is
I don't think that was on the Ouya, actually, Abysme.
I can do you one better. Has anyone heard of the game Doki Doki?
Is that a game on the Ouya? Because I can guarantee you no one has, because it's on the Ouya.
I've heard of Doki Doki Panic.
Yeah, Doki Doki Panic.
I think it's new. Doki Doki Literature Club.
Oh, no. All my shitposting friends on Facebook are talking about that constantly.
So I watched someone play it, and now I immediately regret it because I'd rather have just played this for myself. But spoilers if anyone's listening, and I do encourage you to go play it. I don't think it's that long of a game, but basically
it's free, isn't it? Or is it a paid game?
It's free.
I just want to point out that Abysme said spoilers if anyone's listening. So go ahead.
Yeah, spoilers if anyone's listening. It's free to play, and DLC is only $10 for like all of it. Anyway, So it's in the style of those really popular visual novels on Steam, where it's very like detailed anime manga drawings, and it's set up in like the harem of you're a guy and you're joining a club just with beautiful women in it, and it devolves very quickly into dark, horrible, suicidal nonsense. And the game starts to physically degrade in front of you. You have to, at one point, you're prompted to go into the game's files and like delete a certain character's file, and that changes the game.
Interesting.
And then it just dies, and that is like beat for beat a haunted gaming story. But someone actually made the game.
So it's sort of
And
like
that is
that.
fucking awesome.
It's sort of like that Creepypasta, the dating game. If you remember that.
I do.
I don't know how those two parallel.
They don't.
Because they're about dating simulators. I mean,
Man, I absolutely love what's it called? Jesus Christ.
you love Jesus, yes.
I love Jesus.
I love that. What is that called? Oh yeah, the Christian faith.
Our Lord and Savior. Yeah.
You know that guy?
Damn.
What's his face? Died on the cross. Turned bread into fish or something. I don't know.
Okay. Turned fish into wine. Turned wine into caviar.
Ooh.
Jesus, we only have 10 loaves of bread. Don't worry, my child. Now they are fish. Cool, but we've
Be
only got
free.
10 of them.
Be free, fish.
He just flies away.
He just has like a mildly impressive. We only have 10 loaves of bread. They are now 12 fish. It's like that's actually kind
cool.
of that's actually less food, but it is more protein and will last you longer. It's like,
Jesus.
but the carbohydrates in the bread would have been a more long lasting, burn throughout the day kind of food. It's just,
This guy tried to argue semantics with Jesus.
I don't see what the value is in trying to get more value out of 10 loaves of bread when you live in a time where there aren't even toasters.
I don't know.
Right.
You don't have no panini press. The thing I like besides Jesus is Katawa Shoujo, which is also off topic. Point is, let's talk about another haunted game, which is Undertale.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I could see that. Yeah.
Because the game eventually starts being haunted and haunting you and having meta narrative breaks in it,
Right.
where the game is actually talking to you through certain characters.
I was gonna say, yeah, it's at least meta, if nothing else. In terms of, I was trying to think, does it actually like break that fourth wall in terms of, like you said, like Abysme said, making you go in and delete a file, or blurring the
Yeah.
line
Yes.
between reality and yeah.
Well, it does make you mess with the files and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it tells you that you're trying to save scum the game with by using the power of determination, and then every time you save, it says you're filled with determination. So they're very clearly doing fourth wall breaks.
Yeah.
In a way that is accusatory, and that's kind of what I think is the most interesting aspect of those kinds of creepypastas, are when they are accusing you of something, the player.
Yeah.
Bearing that in mind, if we go back to the Outlast example, it's using a video camera to record all of it, and your character has that, and so there is this realistic element to it, even amidst all of the insanity.
I know that there was it. I think it was one of the Slender games where you go around with the camera and everything, but at a certain point in one of the games, at least, you go to a VHS player which has a tape, from somebody else who was recording before you were there. You put the tape in, and it zooms in on the screen as the tape starts playing, and it takes you a minute to realize, oh wait, now I'm playing the person in the VHS. Recording the VHS that I'm watching.
Yeah.
Kind of
Well,
interesting.
I don't know how much you know about Resident Evil 7, but it does the same thing, only even more complex than that. So you're playing through the game, and you're just playing as your character. I don't think he's actually recording anything. But you get trapped in a house, and throughout the house there are tapes and VHS players. The VHS players you can use anyone for any of the tapes, but it will play when you put the VHSs in, it'll play certain sections of the game, and some of them are entirely unnecessary to play. So it's like it's kind of interesting in that way. And then other ones, you know how like puzzle games, once you figure out the puzzle, you don't need to do the puzzle, and if you play it a second time, you can kind of skip it.
Right.
It has that in there where there are things where you need to solve the puzzle in a flashback via a tape and then actually move forward in time. And I think that that's all interesting.
Right.
But when you're talking about tapes and that kind of stuff and that kind of found footage, it's not necessarily a horror game, and it's not necessarily a good game, and it's a game that is unfortunately wrapped up in political discussion. But there's a game called Her Story that is a full motion video game where you're playing. The game is like set up on a computer desktop at a police station, and you're investigating witness files and witness testimonies of a woman, and you're trying to figure out what the situation is. I believe the story is that she murdered her husband or is being accused of murdering her husband, so they're interrogating her about that, and it's your job to come to conclusions about whether she's guilty or not. And I think that when you're playing with full motion video and you're doing that kind of thing, that is immersing you in the world, and that to me is the key of creepypasta, is immersing people in a world and then putting something in that's unrealistic, that is grounded by all the realism.
So what would you say, we basically have the idea that video games probably already are and will continue to essentially take over in a lot of regard for like horror fiction and different things like that, in that it's like people always say that video games are like the new form of art. You can have the walking simulator games that simulate certain things. You could have all sorts of different games that simulate all kinds of different emotions and storylines and genres and different things like that. So maybe the future of creepypasta is in indie horror games, if not AAA games, but
I don't think it is, and here's why.
Okay.
The cool thing about creepypasta in terms of how it's reacted to YouTube, so you have people like Marble Hornets, they have that story, where that story is being told on a basically non-existent budget with some cameras that anyone can, that's in anyone's price range, and just a little, like, the thing that makes it good is all the ingenuity that goes into filming it,
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise it takes really low fidelity. It doesn't need a whole lot of technical stuff to make a video game realistic in some way and then have that uniqueness stand out. That is much more difficult, because programming a video game to look perfectly realistic and really pull you in is a much bigger challenge, even for an accomplished team. So it would have to come from a AAA development team to do those kinds of things.
Well, see,
I'm going to disagree with you there, however, because
I mean, that's fine if you want to be wrong.
the example I brought up, the dating sim visual novel thing, is like not the code's perfectly tight and works, but it's not like super complicated. And it is the way it messes with people and immerses them in this meta experience, and it's meant to horrify and shock you, is not a AAA title whatsoever. And there's certainly a pull as of recent years for games to not be super photorealistic and to not be just not to come from a AAA studio, but to come out of nowhere. And while they may be, I guess, a little bit derivative of the whole haunted gaming thing, that, whether we like it or not, is a staple of creepypasta. The idea that a game is not what it seems, that can apply to an unlimited amount of game styles.
I think
let's reduce that even more. X thing is not what it seems. X piece of media is not what it seems. It doesn't even need to be games, and I don't really take issue with that either.
Sure.
I think I know what the split here is that DP, you're talking about good creepypasta. You're talking like about immersive. I get where you're coming from here, which is the idea of you pretty much need a AAA company to make an immersive, good horror experience that really affects you. But I'm thinking more along the lines of like in general creepypasta, not necessarily the ones that really involve you. Like, I mean, what story would you think of if I said there's a children's cartoon character and he has a lot of crazy followers, and he has one main follower who wears a mask and kidnaps people and tortures them. Does that sound like
O'Neal.
Say what?
Shaquille O'Neal.
Shaquille O'Neal. So that reminds you of Happy Appy, right?
Yes.
Okay, that's the plot of Bendy and the Ink Machine.
And it is.
Yeah.
I suppose.
So I mean, I kind of feel like we're talking about, I think it's sort of like we're talking about what the ideal, ideal adaptation of creepypasta to video game, or movement from creepypasta to video game would be, but.
Well, one thing that I think is important about creepypasta is that it parades itself around as though it is factual.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I'm getting at in terms of why it would need to be AAA development. I don't disagree that you could have a game that's very cartoony and would achieve similar effects. But when I'm talking about radically realistically grounding yourself to that scenario, that's a different beast entirely. So,
well, then I don't think that Resident Evil 7 qualifies then.
No, I don't think either. What I'm trying to get at is that these are all very flawed examples, and I don't think a perfect one has been out there. But I think that they're all flawed examples.
I think the problem comes when you say that it needs to be radically realistic and it needs to be couched in reality, because I guess it's easy with a story because it's, hey, this happened, I'm just going to recount it to you.
Yeah.
It's up to you to determine otherwise. But if we're talking about immersion does not have to be photorealistic. It just has to be immersive. You just have to. It can. Jesus Christ. You have to kind of suspend your disbelief and for at least a moment kind of buy whatever you're being sold, and that can be cartoony, that can be realistic, it can be anything. I guess.
Let me put it to you this way. What if you have, let's say that the story been drowned, you shouldn't have done that, whatever you want to call it, was never written, and that you find a copy of a game that is basically just Majora's Mask, and then you put it in, and you've never played this game before, and it turns out that every copy of Majora's Mask is like this, where it starts out a normal game, and then the game becomes haunted, and then the game starts telling you that someone died, that someone drowned, that's how the game was programmed to be that way. You see what I'm saying? Like, it's intentional.
Mm-hmm.
That would be commentating on real life too, and that would be grounding itself in a radically realistic way, even though the game is cartoony and has N64 graphics.
Sure.
So I think that you can deal with things that way, but there has to be that kind of exploration and involvement that is realistic, I think. One example I would give of a game that is textbook creepypasta in terms of both bad and good is Night Trap.
Oh, wow.
Fuck, yeah.
Night Trap.
Yeah.
Yeah, fucking Night Trap.
God damn it.
So,
which is getting re-released on the PS4.
No, really?
In physical copies. In physical copies.
What would Night Trap Link look like?
It would be Link dressed up in dark outfit instead. I guess just be it would be Dark Link. It would be Dark Link as a trap.
I see Dark Link as a trap. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Photo negative Link.
Photo negative Link. Jesus Christ. Yeah,
I'm
surprised.
Fish fucking trap Link.
One of the things that surprised me.
By the way, I know I keep interrupting people on this episode. By the way, traps are guys that identify as guys Just want to let people know that
So
for all the people.
you think Trap's our guy? Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
Guy is a trap from Street Fighter and Final Fight. He's a guy. He's a trap on the
Anyway,
weekend.
so I guess my other question would be sort of what I was thinking when we started out, and we went off into a different topic, which I think was good to discuss. The thing I was thinking of was, is there a future in writing video game creepypastas? Because it's like, what else are you gonna do? What, haunted game? Okay, the game's haunted. Pretty much it.
Yeah, no.
I mean,
that's
the Pokepasta challenge was really good in showing how you could sort of play around the idea of the video game. Like, to a certain extent, I know one of the really great stories in that was about, spoiler, about somebody whose kid kept begging them for a Pokemon game, and then they end up, being so mad about the whole situation that they, black out, and when they come to, the child is missing, and they don't know what they did. So, I mean, to me, that's a great way to write a Pokemon pasta around the concept of gaming, but I don't necessarily know if I would call that a, like, game creepypasta. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if that makes sense.
it does, and I would agree with you because it kind of goes back to if you limit yourself to a medium, you're limiting yourself. If you want to make a creepypasta about a haunted song, that goes back to playing your heavy metal records backwards and Satan's talking to you. It's been done, and it's very, very limited resources, so you have to just have it as one facet of your story. And so I guess you can have more creepypastas with games in them, but making it about the game, unless you're going to make the game and not just the
Right.
story, I think you're pretty limited.
Well, I recently read a really interesting haunted gaming thing written by the people at Cinema Nippon and Animal Fact Files about
Oh.
a Uzumaki video game.
Hmm.
And Uzumaki, if you don't know, is a movie and comic book. The comic book is written by a guy named Junji Ito, and
Okay.
and the story is about people in a town that get obsessed with spirals. Just
Yeah, I
everything
actually read that one,
spiral.
yeah. I think that's the
Cool.
only one I've actually read, is this the one with spirals.
And there was a haunted gaming story about it where the person who was playing it kind of gets obsessed with it and gets in a loop, and it's kind of an interesting story. Whether that's traditional creepypasta or not, I don't know, but it was interesting. It was pretty well written.
I mean, to a certain extent, the whole thing can be boiled down to, is there much more you can do in terms of, by and large, across the entire writing community of creepypasta. It's not so much just about video games. I guess it's just basically about media, because as you said, Abysme, about music and everything, it's sort of, can you write another creepypasta about a television show? That, will be some groundbreaking original thing, or will it kind of be falling in with, pretty much everything that's out there? I guess it's just media in general as opposed to just video games, but
Well, if you do, you have to be a lot more limited in the way that you implement it. So it can't be. It just can't be this show is haunted.
right.
It's got to be there is more to this show than what you know. And if you do something like that, then that's fine. I recently read an unaired episode of the Food Network's Chopped, which was fucking hilarious and ultimately not believable. But what they were attempting to do was, instead of make it a haunted thing, they had someone who was obsessed with the show who thought that they would win by impressing the judges with what's like a cannibalistic meal, and that was a cool idea.
Right.
Uh, it could have been implemented in a different way, but the point is they weren't trying to make it, oh, the show is just haunted, and there was a bunch of serial killings or something, generic. They thought of something that pertained to what would be interesting about the show, which is the cooking.
That's, I actually saw that. Wait, Oh yeah, that's right. When you said unaired, I was thinking you were talking about the video you made. But yeah, I had to think for a minute there. But yeah, I did see that, and yeah, I mean the thing is, when I went into watching that, I was like thinking, okay, a haunted episode or a banned episode or a lost episode of a food show. Okay, this should be scraping the bottom of the barrel. And then of course, you read the story and I was like, oh, okay, that was good. I was like, that actually was pretty inventive. No ghosts, no weird, like you said, no serial killings, nothing like that.
Yeah,
Presentation is everything.
Yeah.
Well, it's not that it was a good story or a bad story. It's just it gets so much credit for that inventiveness alone.
Right. I mean, it's like when you read on Undercooked Analysis, you read the creepypasta about that Eiffel 64 song.
Eiffel 65, yeah.
Eiffel 65, whichever one of those. I was thinking of the cover band, but yes, let's.
Yes, yeah.
Yes, I didn't misspeak.
Eiffel 66 would be the cover band. It's like we're the next ones in line.
I think Eiffel 64 would be like the really hipster bands that were like, we were Eiffel 65 before they were. Like, what?
Eiffel 64 would do nothing but songs that were mashups of Blue with N64 video game soundtracks.
There you go. David, lay over. Oh wait, no, we can't do that here.
No.
Damn it.
Damn.
I mean, you could ask nicely. See if he would do it for you.
Future David, would you mix up Blue with one of those tunes, please? No? Okay. I don't hear anything back, so I don't know.
But there was a lot of inventiveness with that. Whereas I think probably the worst haunted gaming story I've ever read is like one about Mario 64, and that was literally just like there was blood, and that was it. But you get these weird things like the Eiffel 65 stuff where they talk about weird crime statistics, and they use this inventive fact that saying I'm blue, if I was green I would die backwards, it sounds like hide the body, eat the body. It's really disturbing, and then they really build a story around it, and they didn't stop there. They were like, okay, what is the origin of this? How can we make hide the body, eat the body its own thing? And so they got into this backstory about their Christian missionary work, which is like this weird little known fact about the band. They just expanded it, and you could only do that if you really contemplated that issue, that Wikipedia page, I guess.
I remember, I don't remember the exact specifics of this, but just to lend some even more believability to that story, perhaps, I remember reading an article about a band, actual real life band that put, I believe it was on a vinyl record. If you played a certain tone on the record into a computer microphone and ran it through some program or another, and this was back in the day of 14.4K modems, way back. That if you put it through this program, it actually created a text file. And in the text file, it said, when we played a concert in this certain, place, and I forget what country it was in. It was some, tour of some, in some other country. It said, when we played in this country, the local government stopped us at a roadblock and took all our money, and so on and so forth. So it was like a little thing about the only way they could tell people what had happened, was in this little computer file that was hidden on a record, which was like something that nobody would have any access to, in their homes at the time. So it was like kind of an interesting thing that there is actually real life shit like that where there is some strange hidden thing that you wouldn't have ever thought would be there. Who would think a computer file would be on a record? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just weird. Anyway, so I guess, I don't know, since we're talking about everything other than the topic, I guess we're pretty much done with this topic.
Yeah, I think so.
And the conclusion is something. So, yeah, thanks for listening, everybody. Overwatch OCs. Do we have any Overwatch characters?
Photo negative tracer.
Jeez, love. I'm a bandit by God. But yeah, I guess
I want to see my tits come off.
I think they already did, Tracer. But anyway. So yeah, I guess that's it. Outroductions? Abysmoid?
Look my name up on the internet, and it's all pretty
Yeah,
self-explanatory.
but don't look up actually Abysmoid, because that's not his real username. It's Abysme.
Look up Abysma. Yeah, look
Yeah.
up Abysma, and you'll be as disappointed as me.
Look up Yzma Rule 34.
Oh. Ugh.
And
I get YouTube channels, Raw Dog Readings, Ray Gun Readers, and Abysme for my music. I do everything I do here on there, as well as make music. Thank you.
Dead Palette?
You can find me at redtube.com/deadpalette. Yeah.
Okay. And I am Slimebeast, aka Tormental. Tormental.com, Slimebeast.com. Whatever. Just leave me the fuck alone. That's all.